It's currently 3 in the morning, I'm stuck in the airport, and the only thing I want to do is take a nap. But it's like they designed airports to be the worst place in the world to sleep. It's bright, it's loud, there's nowhere comfortable to lie down. So what if I could take a nap inside my carry-on suitcase? First, I had to find the perfect carry-on suitcase to tear apart, but the moment I arrived at the luggage store, I could see that this was going to be way more difficult than I thought. A carry-on is tiny, and my original idea for the mechanism just wasn't going to work. That's the nice thing about shopping for supplies in person. You get to problem solve before you even buy anything, it gets your gears turning, and you get to meet cool people like these guys who were so excited to be in a YouTube video.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Well, I can see you hold me.
As I got familiar with my shiny new suitcase, I couldn't stop thinking about how small this thing is and how much I needed to cram inside. The maximum depth is, it's like 3.5 inches. Ooh, it's gonna be tricky. Not a lot of space to sleep inside. But I got a plan, kind of.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
Obviously, I could have used a bigger suitcase, but the whole point of this sleep pod is that you have it with you during long layovers, so you can take a cozy nap in the airport. If a suitcase is bigger than a carry-on, they put it under the plane and you won't see it again until you arrive at your final destination. In 1 month, I was going to be flying to Boston, Massachusetts for my dad's 70th birthday party, and that flight involved a layover in Newark, New Jersey at 3 in the morning, which would be the perfect place to test the sleep pod. But that's assuming I can even test the sleep pod, because there's a real risk that TSA will confiscate this strange-looking suitcase, or airport security won't even allow me to set it up. But that's a problem for later. Back in the present, I only had 1 month to design, engineer, and build something completely outside of my comfort zone. You see, I studied civil engineering, which is a fancy term for designing big things that don't move, like bridges, dams, and roads. I'm not a mechanical engineer, I don't do mechanisms, but I was gonna have to figure it out, because the only way I was gonna fit an entire room into a suitcase was to make some sort of telescoping collapsible mechanism. I 3D printed this first prototype on my Bamboo Lab H2D, and this was inspired by the only example of a mobile sleep pod that I could find on the internet. This guy, David Schatz, built this backpack to create a sense of safety and confidence among people when sleeping in public. The accordion mechanism he used was exactly what I wanted to do when I first had this idea, but the cross-section of a carry-on is so small you just wouldn't be able to fit inside. I figured out that if the sleep pod pulls out from both halves of the suitcase when it's fully open, there's plenty of width to fit inside comfortably. There we go. Gonna have to do something about the fact that it hangs in midair. All these connections are also horrible. But we're on the first prototype. The first prototype is all about is it the right size? In theory, will this work? And I think the answer is yes. We just need to add a lot of details. With prototype number 2, I was attempting to solve 2 problems. First, the scissor mechanism on the first prototype hangs in the air, so I needed something to bring it down to the ground. And second, even if I make each link of the scissors the full height of the suitcase, there is not nearly enough headroom for a comfortable sleep pod, so I needed some sort of pop-up roof. So I temporarily glued this prototype into the suitcase so we can get a better sense of how it will work. I added this extra lever which brings the whole scissor down. It's a little tight. I need to increase the clearance a bit, but it goes up and down like that. And we got our roof struts. In hindsight, it's obvious that this is just not a good design. It has some good elements that would make it into the final version, but man, those roof struts, so janky. I had spent hours designing the most overcomplicated, weird magnetic latch thing so that they would automatically rotate to the right position when you extend the scissors and rotate out of the way when everything is collapsed. That's the theory at least, and it kinda worked, but not an elegant or user-friendly design. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like I know what I need to change from this. If I was smart, I would have taken a step back, gone back to the drawing board, and fundamentally rethought the structure. I think we can maybe print the final brackets on both sides that go in the case. But I was very conscious of the days ticking away, my dad's birthday party getting closer and closer, and I needed to feel like I was making forward progress. So I convinced myself that this was the right design.
I think this is gonna work.
And foolishly started printing more pieces. While the 3D printer was lulling me into a false sense of efficiency, I decided to switch gears and attack one of the problems that I had found during the prototyping. For the sleep pod to work, the suitcase has to stay completely open while standing up, but it naturally wants to close. I figured out that I could re-engineer these feet into some sort of latch since they already touch when the suitcase is open. Spoiler alert, this is not the final latch design, but the reason I'm showing it to you at all is this is the reality, or at least my reality of coming up with good designs. Sometimes you just gotta spend the time designing something terrible to find those simple, elegant solutions. But this solution, not simple and definitely not elegant.
I think this is gonna be terrible, but we gotta test it. This one's white because I messed up the first one. Anyways, so the idea is that you take these little dovetails out, you open up the case, and then the feet hit, and then you put in the dovetails that are magnetically attached. They key into the feet, and it's a bit tricky to get them in. You gotta line it up perfectly. Okay, so once you have them in, oh, they immediately slip out. It stays open, like straight like this, but yeah, they fall out. This is the thing with like making these original inventions. You spend so much time developing a very specific solution for it to just not work. You gotta view it as like not a waste of time. It's a learning experience to iterate and then go on to the next one.
In situations like this, I like to give my brain a rest, let my subconscious work on it for a while, and try to solve a different problem. And luckily, my big print with all of the scissor pieces had just finished. I also made these brackets, which attach to the suitcase with screws. And at this point, I was really starting to regret my decision to print everything in black, since filming black pieces against a black suitcase is extremely difficult. But it would make the inside of the sleep pod nice and dark. Here you can see me attaching those offset arms to the bracket with these 3D printed pins with integrated threads, also known as screws. Which begs the question, why didn't I just use metal screws? That's a great question. I don't have a great answer other than the fact that I started with 3D printed pins, so I tried to improve those rather than fundamentally rethinking the connections, which is a theme in this project. At least these threaded ones don't require glue, unlike the struts, which I was still printing in multiple pieces to maximize their height, but I quickly learned that the 3D printed pins were not gonna cut it.
What's going on?
Don't worry, I'll come to my senses and use metal screws later on, but for now, I was ready to deploy my assembled partial prototype and face reality.
I really don't like my original roof design. I think it's gonna be a huge pain to set up inside of the tent. Oh, this is so weird. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever tried to engineer.
It wasn't just the roof I was questioning, it was the whole basic structure.
Like, do we make it telescoping? Do we make another scissor mechanism that lies on top? That would be horrible to deploy.
But all of my other ideas felt just as bad.
I really want this to be like, not horrible to use.
So I swallowed my pride and finally did something that I should have done days before. Talk to people who are smarter than me.
Hey, Will, what's up?
The main thing I'm trying to figure out right now is the headroom.
What if instead of having one row, you've got 2 rows, and one of them you can open it up like this, so you got exactly double the height. Same system. Do you need height over the whole length? Because technically speaking, you only want like a bit of headroom where you're actually sleeping. So you might also have actually used the handle of the suitcase as your extra height.
Oh, the
I didn't think
handle of
about
the
the handle.
suitcase. The handle of the suitcase is so smart. Yeah, you already got it right there. By the way, this is a conversation that engineers will just have like the most amazing solution for instantly.
How you doing?
One thing that Brigitte said, which I think is a really cool idea, is to take advantage of the handle.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm like, my first thought is like a string. You pull everything out and there's a string on the end of the tent. And then as you pull up the handle, it like tensions the string. But I think there's like a more elegant way to do it. I'm just not sure exactly what it is yet. Another thing then what you could do is on the end scissors, you have an extendable post. Do you want me to draw it? Okay, I'm gonna just do a quick drawing.
Mechanisms are so not my strong suit.
This is my strong suit. So it's like this.
Yes. Oh yeah, okay. That makes a ton of sense. I think you win for the best idea.
Engineezy's idea was almost perfect, but I realized that if I flipped it upside down so that the scissors are suspended in midair, I could enter the pod from the side. This would be a huge upgrade from army crawling in through one end, and it also meant that I no longer had to max out the length of the scissor struts since all of the height would come from those extendable legs. And that meant no more glue. I also modified the struts so they're held together with M5 machine screws and nylon lock nuts. This test was super exciting. The 3D printed scissor mechanism easily supports itself when held in the air, but it's so wiggly side to side, so I knew I was gonna need to add some cross braces in addition to designing the flip-up mechanism, latches, and all the other components, which is a lot of stuff out of my comfort zone, but my calls with Colby, Brigitte, and Jay lit a fire inside of me. And when you get that fire, when that creative motivation strikes, you want to be ready with the right tools to bring your ideas to life, which is why I am so grateful for the sponsor of this video, Bamboo Lab. Bamboo makes all the 3D printers in my workshop, and they empower me to get creating fast with zero friction. You've been watching me print all of these pieces on the H2D, and with its massive build volume, the H2D has no trouble with these huge frame pieces, which will hold the electrical panel for the sleep pod. We'll get back to the electrical panel later. Gonna use the laser cutter on the H2D to make the panel itself, but with one side of the scissor mechanism kind of done, I was itching for another test.
All right, I'm feeling optimistic about this. I think we might have finally figured it out. So this comes out just like before. Still gotta figure out this thing to hold the case open. Then we flip up and oh no.
Okay, so we have a new problem. Wasn't quite sure how to fix that one yet, so while mulling it over, I thought I'd try a new design for the latches that keep the suitcase open. An idea I got from Engineezy.
You could try using magnets there.
That was my first idea, but I didn't think they would be strong enough.
You gotta try it.
I was pretty skeptical, but Jay's a smart dude, so I printed some new feet with holes for my biggest, strongest magnets, screwed them in place, and crossed my fingers.
I don't think it's gonna work, but we'll see. Here we go. 3, 2. Oh! I didn't even get to 1. It just grabbed it and pulled it into vertical. Dang!
Of course, Jay was right, and it felt so good to finally get a win.
We're just chipping away one problem at a time.
When a project finally starts to work, when you successfully fix problems, it kind of gives you momentum and starts making other problems easier to solve. After days of pondering, I finally figured out the whole suitcase falling over problem. Since the whole scissor mechanism pivots on those parallel arms, there's no rigidity forwards and back. If I added some sort of latch that locks the legs in place, they could act like a kickstand. I came up with this funky magnetic handshake latch, which actually works incredibly well. Now that the whole thing wasn't constantly falling over, I could move onto the cross braces. I started with 2, one on either leg, but it was immediately clear that I was gonna need more.
What? Yeah, not very stable.
The legs themselves were also quite unstable. Definitely needed some reinforcement, so I made these removable feet as well as these pieces which lock the leg hinges because magnets alone were definitely not enough. Not the most elegant solution, but we were getting dangerously close to my dad's birthday party, and I still had some pretty major elements to build. With these extra cross braces, the structure was feeling pretty solid, so I switched gears back to the electrical panel. Earlier, you saw me make this 3D printed magnetic frame which will hold the panel, and to make the panel itself, I switched my H2D into laser mode. For big flat objects, laser cut plywood just makes more sense than 3D printing, so it's awesome to have a machine that can do both. I made the panels out of this nice walnut plywood to add a warm, luxurious feeling to the inside of the sleep pod. This panel will hold a portable power bank, lights, and a ventilation fan. That big cutout will be for the fan, and those hexagons will provide some ventilation for the power bank, which will be held in a 3D printed case. Printing the case in this orientation gives the best print quality, except for all that support material, which would normally be a nightmare to remove from inside of the case. But this isn't a normal printer. Since the H2D has dual extruders, I printed all of the support interface material with this special filament that easily detaches from PLA. It's features like these, features that empower you to bring your ideas to life as fast and easily as possible, that have made the H2D my new favorite 3D printer. Bamboo Lab has always been known for making fast and easy to use 3D printers, but the dual extruder, the laser cutter, I didn't even mention the fact that this machine is also a vinyl cutter. It's not a 3D printer, it's a personal manufacturing hub. And if I only had room for one tool, it would be hard to choose a better machine to bring your wildest inventions to life. With the fan and power bank, this panel was pretty heavy, so I was a little skeptical that those little magnets would hold it, but it snapped right into place with the most satisfying fit. I could use the extra USB ports to charge my phone, this portable reading light, and run this set of fairy lights, but those were gonna be attached to the tent, and to make that, I was gonna need some help.
Hello. Oh.
Can you help me?
This is my lovely wife, Eden. You saw her earlier trying to get comfortable at the airport, and she's a bit of a sewing expert.
Eden, how many sewing projects have you done?
Tree.
Okay, so maybe not an expert, but she's got more experience than me. So with some additional help from Abby and Penny, but mostly Penny, we turned my half-baked idea into a game plan and started sewing.
You want to put the needle down?
Oh. Whoa, what the f?
So stop.
First try.
Questions Worley has asked me in the 30 seconds since he has started sewing. 1, why is the needle hole so small?
Look how fast I'm going.
Well,
you should show the people this. This is what they want to see. You missed it. I'm at the end.
Can I tell you something? Yeah. Watching people sew is not interesting.
All right, let's see if this works.
You're right, filming black on black is
Yeah, I mean, I
awful.
should have made this bright red, but honestly, it would not have been, number one, the most stealth, and number two...
Morley, nothing about this is stealth.
That's true.
It's like stealth camper vans, where like everyone knows that you're living in there.
Right. I mean, that's kind of sick. And then we got the Velcro sides.
Wait,
satisfying.
That's so dark.
And then you just go in. Wow, this is like super nice.
This actually like, worked out very well.
With the trip to Boston only days away, it was crunch time. I spent a very satisfying hour attaching fairy lights to the ceiling of the tent to create a nice cozy atmosphere, made a quick trip to my local camping store where I picked up a super packable sleeping pad and camping pillow, also got this great sleep mask, and now it was time to see if I could actually fit some normal luggage in the suitcase in addition to the entire sleep pod.
I think this is all I have room for. Not sponsored, Eden loves licorice.
Now, the fact that my entire carry-on luggage is taken up by a sleep pod might sound a little ridiculous, but in the current hellscape of air travel where it's somehow okay for airlines to charge you for a carry-on, I've become pretty good at packing all of my luggage into a personal item, which is a small bag or purse that you're allowed to take on the flight for free. It's just supposed to fit under the seat in front of you, but I found that with the right size backpack, you can really push the limits of a personal item. Okay, sorry, I have to interrupt myself for another quick rant about the airline industry. So when we originally bought these tickets, it was only for a long weekend, so we did the most basic ticket that only included a personal item. And then when I got the idea to build the sleep pod, I had to buy a carry-on to add on to our tickets. And that cost $209 for something that used to be included in every airline ticket for free. So I don't know, make a fuss, call your senators, but in the meantime, just buy a pretty big backpack because you can fit a surprising amount in a personal item. I fit a full long weekend's worth of luggage into this, plus my camera gear, plus my laptop. And well, the flight attendants could give you a hard time and make you pay at the gate if it looks too big, but the day of our trip, I was a little preoccupied with a different problem. What did you say about the suitcase not being allowed at the airport?
I think security will have an issue with you sleeping in it because I can't see you. I think security is usually okay with you sleeping in the airport, but they need to like be able to see that you're alive.
The possibility that I would get shut down before I had a chance to even test the sleep pod was a discouraging prospect, but that was out of my hands. The trip had begun, we had arrived at our first airport where we encountered another potential roadblock, TSA. I had no idea how this thing would look on the X-ray. All those articulating parts, latches, the fan. The only thing worse than being told I couldn't set up my sleep pod was getting it taken away before I even got on the first plane. While we were in line, I started panicking a little bit, so scrambling for something, I took the portable power bank out of the suitcase just in case that increased the chances of it getting through TSA. I really thought it was gonna get pulled.
I bet him 0 nothings that it wouldn't, so I won.
Woohoo! Oh, our flight has a new gate. We breezed our way through customs, experienced the local culture, and it was finally time for our first flight. This was the big one. 5 hours overnight to Washington, D.C., and the moment we boarded, I was already dreading the sleep deprivation. I usually can't sleep on planes, and this was no exception, but Eden had a great night. When we landed, the sun was rising on the nation's capital, but it was still 3:30 in the morning in Vancouver, where we came from. As much as I was ready for a nice, cozy nap, I was also feeling pretty nervous that we would get shut down before I could even try out the sleep pod. And it didn't help that the area we chose to set up the pod was very open and very busy. Security was gonna clock us instantly, so I just tried to act casual and move fast. While I was setting up the pod, I was thinking about how insane it is that this might not be allowed. Every day, people are stuck in airports overnight, sometimes for multiple days, and at least in North America, most airports don't have anywhere free and comfortable to take a nap. But maybe the airports are more tolerant than I feared, because at least 10 official-looking people walked by as I was setting up the pod, and none of them gave me a hard time. I was convinced we were gonna get stopped while we were setting up, but there's people walking by outside. And we're just chilling here in the sleep pod. This guy does not care. Do you wanna go inside? You want your turn?
Oh, wow. Oh, wait, this is gonna be so good. Oh,
After a 5-hour flight of not sleeping.
I slept great. Oh, wow, this is so nice. I can fall asleep in here. I'm not going to because anxiety and authority.
I'll stand guard.
Sorry.
Eden went into the sleep pod, turned off the fan, and farted.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What
Sorry. I didn't mean to do any of those things.
It smells horrible in here.
So after all that drama, the Suitcase sleep pod was kind of a huge success.
I'm so surprised that this hasn't gotten shut down yet. I was certain it would. What a raging success.
What a raging success.
Washington Dulles does not care.
Does not care.
No one cares.
Or maybe they just know how to identify real threats and leave normal people alone who are just trying to take a nap. Ironically, the sleep pod was pulled aside at TSA before our second flight, but they didn't even open it. Eden got in 2 more legendary naps before arriving at my parents' house.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
And yeah, my dad's 70th birthday, it was awesome. So happy we made the time to travel across the country for this, and shout out to my dad, Charlie, for kind of being the reason this video exists.
Looks like something out of a James Bond movie.
If you made it this far, spam the comments with Charlie. He's really a great human, which is why so many people came out to celebrate him. Special thanks to him and my top supporters on YouTube memberships and Patreon, Paige Arlt, Luis Armendariz, and my mom, Kathy Kurt. Love you, Mom.